Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Baldini. That guy over there is Joe Labarbera, the chairman of the Sussex County, New Jersey Republican Party, not to be confused with Delaware, right? We are this is our re-kickoff, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Re-kickoff of this series of discussions that we did a couple years ago around the election for around the state. And now we're doing it again in 2025 with our great President Trump, who has a possibility of flipping the state of New Jersey with Jack Ciattarelli and in the governor's seat, right? So we have a very positive run ahead of us. And we wanted to start off. I wanted to start off with talking about Joe's book here for a free and prosperous and free state of New Jersey. And I did 4 chapters. It's a little over 100 pages, and I did a thorough deep dive on it. We're going to pick into it, get some ideas, some key points that I found. I mean, honestly, there was a lot of key points that I found, but no, I found it very, very easy to read. One, I also found that it was very knowledgeable, and it had a lot of source notes too. So you had a lot of good direct links you could click to go to the information you were talking about. So, without further ado, then Joe, let's get this show on the road, shall we?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Thanks for doing this, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's good to be doing this again. We had a good time last time we were doing. I'm glad we were initiating our partnership in expressing our message.
Yeah, this is all part of getting information out, right? So when we look at this, we're really helping other candidates, and we're also helping the voter to make informed decisions. Because this book, for example, I encourage you to go out. It's on Amazon. Get out there. You can digitally download it, read it on your Kindle. I did. It's a very good source. I guess the best way to do it is it's another one of those books that pulls the veil back from what the Democrats have been doing. It's very easy to get caught into, oh, that's just the way things are done, and that's the way things have been done for so long. And you kind of nail in, well, doing it that way has caused X, Y, and Z to happen, and that's why our state's in the terrible spot that it's in financially and, politically. Our police, our criminality going on with this stuff going on. It's all, you make it very clear. You even talked about the jails and the problem with the jails in here. So let's dive in. I like the first question. The first thing that it's not a question. It's the first one I found. Was to replace Christianity with the cult of the supreme being during the French Revolution. You get into the history, Joe, and that's my thing, right? The history is my thing.
You are an excellent historian and a teacher of history to generations of young people.
Yes, and to me, you're like, you go all the way back to the French Revolution, and you really kind of like, you make the cases. What's wrong with the Democratic Party and what's wrong with their movement? So before we get into it, I got to say, golf clap to you for doing that. So here's my first highlight. In a leftist-run society, centralized banks rule the roost, and their control of currency degrades industry and allows for small cabals to impose their ideologies. And I remember that when we were talking last time around, you were very much talking about the Goldman Sachs guy sitting in the governor's house and how that was influencing politics in New Jersey. So I'm going to hand it to you. Go. It's all you. What do you have to say about that?
Governor Murphy just did an interview where he is openly saying how the Goldman Sachs group laughs and jokes about their direct line to government. And that's because if you look at the 12 districts of the Federal Reserve System, they're overwhelmingly run by Goldman Sachs guys. So what Goldman Sachs has done with their informal marriage to the Federal Reserve is they've been able to exert an economic dominance over the United States of America. Now, a lot of people associate finance with capitalism. a lot of people associate finance with a free market economy. You can be an utter communist. You can be an utter fascist. You can be all these isms and still be a financier. Finance is a magical language that is devoid from any ideology. It is just merely a tool to impose your will on the society. And what is unique to the American experience is our surrender to the concept of a national bank has been now complete and total. In early American history, there was a lot of anathema to the idea of a national bank. It was basically considered a mistake. Andrew Jackson threatened to actually murder people who proposed it. I mean, I think Jackson's last words were he only regretted he never hung Henry Clay or shot John C. Calhoun because of their passion for having a national bank. Thomas Jefferson, of course, and even Adams and Monroe were all viscerally against Alexander Hamilton for his love for a national bank. Because unlike the Bank of London, unlike other national banks, Americans, we go all in. And going all in on a national bank, as we did with the Federal Reserve in 1913, has allowed exactly what Andrew Jackson, a Democrat of all people, said, but he was a populist. He was a populist first, is that by allowing for a fiat currency to become so predominant in an economy, you are now allowing a few people to exert influence over everybody. That's why it's coming out now. Groups like BlackRock, big private equity, and in conjunction with their marriage to big banks, have more power than the president can ever dream of. And this is a problem. This isn't what we're here to do. I didn't go out and fight for the banks, for the banking system. Like did Smedley Butler, the Marine officer, say, Medal of Honor recipient, I was a gangster for capitalism. What he should have said is he was a gangster for the banking system, because the banking system, when it centralizes currency, and it creates an economic dependency on the infusion of currency. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Keynes often said, in times of crisis, print money and get us off our asses so we can get back in action economically. No argument there. The argument is when you have a nation whose economy hinges on the influx of currency. And at that point, whoever takes over the banks runs the show. And that's what we're dealing with right now in the United States of America.
Yeah, no, I think the way you have been nailing, and I've heard a lot of people talking about the power of the banks, and we can see it. Even President Trump was trying to get the interest rate down to 1 with the Federal Reserve. But even doing that, it would save so much on our debt that it would really have a game changer for our
debt is power. Without debt, there is no banking power. Right. Banks don't rule based on equity. Banks don't rule based on trade. Banks rule by debt. All we are is a feudal system with a velvet glove. If you think about it, almost every American has a mortgage. So between a mortgage, between a property tax burden, between an income tax burden, other than the conditions of our comfort and health, what difference is this from feudalism? There's really no difference. We still don't own our property. We still don't control our destiny. And we still exist to pay our lords and masters. So when I hear people say, oh, well, I'm a taxpayer, as if the tax paying is their rite of passage to citizenship, that is utterly wrong. You're a citizen by the grace of being an American citizen. The taxes should not define your citizenship. And that's where we as Republicans are failing horribly. Because when we redefine citizenship of taxation, that gives the leftist, the globalist, the person who doesn't believe in national sovereignty or borders, the Westphalian nation state, that gives them the ability to say, hey, illegals are here paying taxes. Well, if that's the case, Bill, Jim, if I'm living in Dubai and I'm doing trade in the United States and I'm paying an American tax, does that give me the authority to vote in an American election? Exactly. So therefore, by that notion, the idea of the taxpayer as a measure of citizenship is a very bad notion. It's a very un-American notion.
Right. Let's switch topics a little bit. I mean, because I don't want to sit on too much for too long. In this quote that I have here, Democrat-run Hudson County getting to the election, producing a majority of working-class Hispanic men to support Donald Trump, for New Jersey to successfully defeat leftism and achieve the state's great potential, it requires a Republican Party that focuses on messaging in Democrat-run districts while supporting candidates who can reach working and middle-class men whose voter turnout historically is very low, but when turning out have the potential of voting against the absurdities of the left. And I have to tell you, Joe, when I read this, I said, this is exactly what you and I talked about for that entire ring of videos that we did, was going into the Democrat-held areas and knocking on doors and getting the vote out in those areas because we could win. And this is proof of our concept. Trump proved our concept. And so I just wanted to give you the chance to expound on that because the Democrats are the Jacobins in this French Revolution example. 100%. They're the Jacobins. 100%. And so to me, this is, like, can you expand on what I just read to you?
100%. Trump almost won New Jersey. He didn't win it by our beloved Sussex County. We're going to turn out the same all the time. He didn't win it by Ocean County. They turned out the same. He didn't win it by the suburbs. Trump almost won New Jersey because of working class Hispanic men. That's right. And that will be how Jack Ciattarelli will win New Jersey. He will win New Jersey. See, ultimately, the Democrats have adopted a really weird brand of totalitarianism. They've adopted a message that basically says, and this is an accurate message, is they utterly hate men who have families. They despise us. They don't like the fact that we have families. They don't like men in authority. Hey, we got Republicans in our own party that if you disagree with a woman, I mean, I've been attacked simply for disagreeing with a female. Oh, he doesn't talk nice to women. He disagrees with them. So when you have this mentality that has been instilled even into some people at our own party, that the man must be submissive to the woman in any forum, whether she's right, whether she's wrong, whether she's illegal, whether she's a criminal, whether she's nuts, whatever. When you have that, you have an underlying message of undermining what they call the patriarchy. So they are in this utopian fool's errand to create a world where men who build families don't exist. They don't even want us running families. So where do we go? I mean, if the Democrats and the far left have their future, what happens to men who have families? What happens to us? We're marginalized. We're clowns. We're the Homer Simpsons. We're the Al Bundys. That's what they want to turn us into. That's their utopia. That's their future. So the thing is, most, I believe, white men in America have become conditioned to this. The Hispanic men have not become conditioned to this. And they're going to rebel against it. And I think the future generations of young white men and young African-American men will rebel against this because they've had enough. They've had too much. They've had too much of the and they can see through the falsities and the inauthenticity of the schools and the institutions, basically trying to pretend that they're somehow, they lack virtue or they lack morality or they lack intellect or they lack strength just by being men who have families. So, and this is ultimately the issue and why the Democrats are not, their message is not sustainable. You can see forces within the Democrat Party trying to push them away from that. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because in the end, African-American woman, liberal white woman.
Low signal there, I guess. Joe, you there?
Hey, where did I lose you?
There you go. You said African American, and then boom.
Yeah. So men who build careers and have families are going to largely more and more reject the message of the far left, because the message of the far left is to ultimately undermine what they see as a toxic power base. And the ultimate belief they have is that we should do the work, we should do the sacrifice, we should be the ones to bear the burden of all their sins. And it's just a bad message to send, and it only worked with the baby boomers and I would say some of Generation X. I think even the millennials are rebelling against it.
In the book you called the modern leftist is a nouveau Bolshevik, which I love.
Oh, without the teeth. Without the teeth.
Yeah.
I've read extensively of the Bolsheviks. I've read about whether it's Trotsky or Stalin, who was the godfather of Baku, who was actually a Russian mobster. He was a Russian oligarch who threw in with the Bolsheviks to beat the Soviets in their own little internal conflict, and that's how he rose to power. Stalin was the financier for the Bolshevik army. And when you read about their whole genre, these guys were not like the modern liberal or the modern communist at all. These guys had teeth. They had real teeth. And all they really were doing was selling a dream to the large peasant class to mobilize them against the current authority. When they took over the Soviet Union, when Mao took over China, when Pol Pot took over Cambodia, when Fidel took over Cuba, these guys were hyper-masculine. They were the patriarchy, 100%. I mean, homosexuality was considered decadent. It was considered a mental disorder under communism. Anything that wasn't strong or virile or violent was considered bourgeois decadence. And the modern Bolshevik or the modern Democrat is extremely effect. And the irony, Jim, the irony is the people who protect them are the very people they despise. Overwhelmingly, the effect people in law enforcement who are the good street cops, the wise, overwhelmingly, these guys are the guys. These are the people they will undo. Like Marx said, we will sell the capitalists a noose, the noose that we hang them with. That is what the Democrats are offering the law enforcement community. And the law enforcement community is starting to wake up to this. I was trying to say it. Remember when I did the Blue Lives Matter event and we were trying to say this back in 2020? You can't endorse the Democrats thinking they're going to give you your COLA or your benefits. Ultimately, they're going to destroy your profession. Ultimately, the Democrats are going to turn the law enforcement profession into glorified mall cops. Look what they've done in Portland. Look what they've done in Seattle. Look what they've done in San Francisco. Those aren't police forces. Those are glorified mall cops. And that is what they want. The Democrats want a world of chaos and criminality where they can simply create, when law enforcement to simply target their enemies. And until we wake up to that as Republicans, we're going to keep making the same stupid mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, we have to, it's one of those areas where we have to get the groups to come together to support, because we have the better message. Our message is the better message, because ultimately, like you point out, it will destroy. They will destroy. It's the same thing, by the way. And if I can jump ahead to the next topic, it's the same thing you were talking about when you were talking about education. If because as a teacher, I'm on the inside, they are destroying education, and it's the same type of thing. Because as you said, New Jersey Republicans should appoint an auditor to dissect the funding going towards this department, the Department of Education, and all who spend taxpayer money in education's name, and demonstrate how the students are shortchanged while companies hired for educational projects reap the rewards as favors from the Democrat Party. Now, I can speak directly to that in a sense that it's not just the money, because we know, as you know from our research, $40 billion has been spent since 2016. Over $40 billion now has been spent on the Abbott districts, and with almost virtually zero change with just a few examples of different, like I think there's a couple that have shown improvement, but by and large, of the 30-some districts, we're looking at 28, 29, which are still failing districts, and they've had 40 years of fixing it. And I only took that 2016 to 2024 range of $40 billion being spent. Just money given directly to the districts, fed into the districts. $2 billion of it came from building projects, and the rest of it was direct money from the coffers of the state into the districts. And what was the response? No change. So they are destroying the educational system because they're not getting results. And so I said my piece on it, but you did also bring up the another quote, if I can: the Republican Party can easily become the education reform party if they allied with the right educators and demonstrated that it is the machine of the education industry which drains the resources for teachers and students with the erroneous programs and contracts which are purely designed to enrich Democrat donors who are awarded with contracts for these programs. and I would point directly to the NJA,
Mm.
and we need go no further than the governor's race, Joe.
Mm.
No further than the governor's race with Sean Spiller, president of the NJA, former president of the NJA, running for governor. Where did his money come from?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
so, I mean, please speak on this because this is it's a subject dear to me.
Yeah.
But I know it's a populace of the state that we should be able to pick off to join us in this fight.
What's happened with the NGAA is exactly what happened with the U.S. military, but the military didn't go to the same extreme, where the institution became the idol instead of the profession. So therefore, you're feeding the virtues of an institution rather than the profession. Case in point, the U.S. military became less about your competencies in your warfighting ethos and more about compliance, bureaucracy, ridiculous new training standards you didn't need, and events and things that were just not anywhere applicable. And then the final culmination was DEI in the military. And the military, though, regurgitated that in like a collective vomit and went against it. And thank God for Trump's election in Hegseth, which is now reversing that. But what you don't have that level in the educational community,
No.
because the educational community has traditionally been the purview of those who are left leaning. So therefore, they are embracing this abandonment of the profession of education. And they're ditching the profession of educating, and they're embracing the love of the institution. So therefore, you're going to see the rise of many, and you've already seen it, many incompetents that will not want to be held accountable to actual standards or results. And what you're going to see is people get promoted and rewarded based on their ideology or based on their ability to fit the mold of the institution. You know, like you've seen this in militaries through history. The utter incompetent who gets his whole unit wiped out or killed and can't function, but he was a good old boy. He was an old boy. He went to the right schools. He had the right training. He came from the right family. That's what you're seeing now in the educational community. So the Democrats feed that. Don't forget, the Democrats are not, they don't have an ideology. The Democrats' ideology is power. And, you know, the Republicans, of course, we got our flaws as well. Many Republicans will put business before what's good for everybody else. Oh, the business of America is business. That's why we have businesses in Sussex County that support the Democrats and are afraid of the Democrats because they say they put their business first. The Democrats don't do that. The Democrats put their ideology first. And their ideology is to achieve political power and then utterly marginalize and erode the American ethos and the American experience. They don't believe in American exceptionalism. They don't believe in the future of America. They're ultimately globalist mindset because the financier is a globalist. When you bring that down to the smaller level, the micro level in New Jersey, the NGAA is no longer an institution that believes in the virtue of the educational system. The NGAA has become an extension of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, no, I think also there's the ideology, because the hard part about fixing the education system in New Jersey is one of the big problems is the schooling, because this goes into, I was listening to VDH about the corruption of the universities. They are fully corrupted with the DEI, and so that the teachers and administrators that are coming out of those institutions, which are then going into our schools, are indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of this cabal of people who, as you point out, they fit the mission of the institution instead of the actual what they're supposed to be doing. They're fitting the ideology instead of, I should say, the mission.
They're a temple of Pharisees, Jim.
Yeah.
They're a temple of Pharisees. Like Macaulay said with Horatius at the gate, why do we do this? For the ashes of our fathers and the temples of our gods. Education is no longer the temple of a higher purpose. It's the temple of a very secularized way of simply siphoning tax money to perpetuate an institution.
Right. And, you know, I get to this, I constantly push against educators who like to pontificate about how they're making the kids more socially responsible. And I turn around and I say, well, you've just identified why. Now I can see why the kids who get to me aren't able to read and write and do math, it's because you're doing all emotions. You're not teaching the fundamentals.
Well,
You're
social responsibility comes from character, strength, resilience, ideology, love of country, love of family, faith. That's where social responsibility comes from. It doesn't come from this artificial, touchy-feely belief in these false and that's what's so weak about what the left offers. The left offers a weak virtue signal that relies on basically disparaging somebody as not as virtuous based on one particular point or view. And what the left ultimately offers is a complete dehumanization of the human experience and a submission to the world's worst deeds.
Right, right, so and we also give up on teaching the kids how to read and write. There's a key point
Well, it's
where
not reading and writing isn't important. It's not important to them.
It's not as important as their emotional and their gender bias and the other.
Well, those are all the issues that they use is to confuse and disrupt and
exactly. They ignore the basics, and you point this out is like when we win in November, what we need to do is we have to do what in essence Trump has done on a national stage. We have to do it on the New Jersey stage.
Otherwise, it's a false errand.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to clean it up.
Gingerelli's going to do that. I mean, he's already talking about who he's going to appoint. If you don't completely replace all the appointments which are in position, it doesn't matter who you put. Look, we're seeing this in the township level. How many people have we helped get in office in all these towns in our county? And then they get in like, I can't do anything. The business administrator, the public works people, the appointees, we become a Rasputin type environment where the appointees, or a Byzantine environment, where the appointees and the courts actually tell the elected leaders what to do. And the other reason is because look how much they get paid. I mean, when you're in office, you get paid very little and you get nothing but attacked. So a lot of people who have the ability to really do great things are not going into office because I'm going to jeopardize my business, my family reputation. And then look at the unseated characters we have in office. I mean, the Bill Hayden example was a beautiful example of a guy who was never a Republican. He was a complete fake. And then you have other people. Yeah. And then look at the Democrats you got out there. Holy cow, look at a guy like Menendez. Down in South Jersey, you have a political boss who was indicted for racketeering. Got away with it. And this is a guy who sways elections. The Democrats have real villains. We have a few fools and clowns. The Democrats have real life criminals and villains running their party and running their organization. So why would good people put their neck in a noose and put their reputation on the line and do this? The answer is the other answer is that we have a generation that doesn't have the mettle to take these things on. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, I can just tell you my experience of the last 2 years of being a party chairman. I mean, they go after your work, they go after your family, they mock you, they provoke you, they do all those things to you because their attempt is if you're a threat, if you're doing your job right as a Republican, the Democrats will come after you. If the Dems aren't coming after you, you're probably not doing your job. That's how I look at
it. Yeah, which gets me to the next topic of reform, because we're talking about reform.
Yeah.
You talked about the Department of Corrections. The New Jersey
that's the case in point.
Yeah, in the Assembly and Senate must establish a prison reform caucus and investigate the Democrat mismanagement of the corrections system. And you also point out the Republican senators in New Jersey must hold a conference with state union leadership and industry leaders throughout the state and lead them in the direction of a greater economy with greater markets and greater incentives. These two, I think, are linked because not only is it fixing the corrections, but when you clean up government, people want to come here, and those incentives are natural. And so I think if you could just speak on that, I'd appreciate it.
If you listen to any of our wonderful legislators, and I'm very happy with pretty much all of them. I mean, there's a few that I think are not wise, but overall, I think the Republican legislators in New Jersey are exceptionally capable and very sharp and very honorable, and I'm really happy with them. Their approach, though, you got to understand, they are businessmen and lawyers. So their approach to legislation is about bickering in the legislature with a majority group that is always going to shoot them down. I believe that approach is wrong. I believe the approach, and if we had a very dynamic and strong Republican Party, which is what we're developing now, and really have faith in this new chairman, the approach, and it's always the approach, oh, we just got to get a good Republican elected, and then he'll be like King Arthur, and he'll Excalibur, and he'll just slay the Green Giant. And
doesn't happen like that.
That's the whole Republican mentality. Yeah. It's not. You have to. We had an expression in the military: take the fight to the enemy. So the fight needs to be where the enemy is operating. The enemy doesn't care about the legislature. They got the legislature. The fight needs to be their appointees, their bureaucracies, their systems. And you need to get the law on them. And if the New Jersey Adjutant General isn't going to support it, you get the Department of Justice involved. And then you show the scandals. Then you show the issues. Then you show the inefficiencies. Then you get PR firms. Then you get law firms that are outside, that are Republican leaning, to go and sue them. The Democrats weaponized civil rights. They took the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they used the Southern Poverty Law Center to sue or bring to court and harass anybody they disagree with. They do that with the ACLU. The Democrats weaponize the law, and they weaponize the court system when they are in the minority. If we don't do the same, we're foolish. We are utterly foolish. Let's go to the courts and let's fight against every activity the Democrats promote. And if we're not going to be able to marshal this because we don't want to jeopardize business, shame on us. The Democrats do business. They do business a lot, and they still fight like you wouldn't believe. The problem with the Republicans is simply this: tenacity. They lack the tenacity. I mean, they don't lack it. They are failing to use tenacity in their desire to appear Republican and noble. This isn't the time for that. This is the time to get our knuckles bloody.
No.
This is the time.
Yeah. It's really what Trump has done with his fixing things. It would be like if you had like a Mitt Romney Republican or a John McCain, they would say, well, let's create an independent study group to do some research on it. And then they would spend 6 months or a year, and they would come back and say something that wasn't relevant, and they would not have good answers. Mm-hmm. Well, we know the answers. We see the answers. And I'll give you an example because you actually linked it. And since you linked it, I'm going to, in your book, I'm going to put it up here. You linked to this article right here.
Oh,
you know what's wrong with it. The county jail correct conditions. They're hazardous even to a dog.
Microcosm of everything that's wrong. You and I are passionate about the schools. If you want to see real abuse of the Democrats in this state, look at the Department of Corrections.
Yeah. And there's the evidence. Like, we don't need a study. It's already been done. And so you don't need to be the sober and judicious, slow walk them through. No, you sometimes you need to take the hammer and you need to break open the bank and you need to start peeling back the onions and rip and tear to get to the root cause. And then when you get to the root cause, you cut it out like a cancer and you toss it aside and you clean it up.
This is we are a liberal Democrat state that defines nation and citizenship based on race. The Democrats define it all based on race. The Democrats say America is inherently a racist state. New Jersey has been a Democrat state, in effect, going back a very long way. Even with Christie as governor, Democrats have controlled a lot in this state. Our Department of Corrections incarcerates overwhelmingly African Americans. Their residual rate is almost nil. And in those prisons is probably some of the most barbaric and disgusting environments you ever want to imagine. It's basically our correction system are dungeons that people rot in. So you would think the Dems are on top of this. Then if you look at everybody in the Department of Corrections, they're all Democrat operatives. And then look at the residency rate of corrections officers. Corrections officers quit like that.
Yep.
You can't rehire them.
One of the things you point out.
They're not empowered. They're not empowered. And so I'm going to get spit on. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get threatened. My family's going to be threatened. And I'm going to get paid very little. And then if I so much as raise a hand to an inmate trying to cut my throat, I get fired or reprimanded or put in jail myself. What the Democrats offer is injustice and chaos in the name of a false virtue. And there's no other way you can see that as effectively than in the correction system in New Jersey.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Joe, but two of my brothers were jail cops. One up here and one down in Delaware County in PA. And it's really, being inside the prison as a jail cop, it requires a certain aspect of your mentality that you have to be in order to survive in there as a jail cop. And so the last thing that you need is everything you just described happening to you, where you get mistreated and then you get no support, and you get undercut by the governor and his minions. You get right down to it. You can't have that. And I think that this is a great case in point where you point out, we should be hammering on this. We got the education reform, we got the jail reform, and I think we cannot say it enough. What you pointed out, what's the largest population that Governor Murphy has jailed in our jails today? It's the minorities.
Yeah, and if the Democrat experiment in their solutions were correct in New Jersey, why do we still see African Americans as they're a minority in New Jersey? What's the percentage of African Americans in New Jersey? It's very low.
I don't know. I'll look it up while you talk.
New Jersey is a very white state. Why do we have overwhelmingly a majority of African Americans in our jails?
It's a good question.
This is proof that the Democrat solution is not effective. The Democrat. What's that?
12.4% of the population identifies Black.
So there's less African Americans in New Jersey proportionally than the entire United States of America. Yeah. And what's the proportion of African Americans in our prison system in New Jersey? Probably a lot more. I know it's a lot more, actually. I'm going to let you look it up.
Let's see. New Jersey, they account for approximately 60% of the state's prison population.
So they're 12% of the state of New Jersey, but they're over 60% of the prison population.
Right.
But I
over
thought
times.
If you look at the Democrat Party in New Jersey's website, they divide everything into race.
Yes, you mentioned that. Yeah.
Every caucus in the Democrat Party is divided by race. You don't see that on the Republican website. No. We don't, as Republicans, we don't define ourselves by Hispanic or gay or Black, we don't. The Democrats define everything by race. Hitler redefined nation as race. A socialist defines everything by class. A Democrat socialist defines everything by race. So if their solutions to empowering minority races was effective, why do we have over 60% of why do we have 60% of the jails are African American? It should be proportionate, right?
Right. No, it should be.
They haven't solved anything. The Democrats have not solved anything. If anything, they perpetuated an existing problem.
It worse.
Yeah.
They made it worse.
Yeah. And the African Americans need to understand that. Now, African American men need that message taken to them. And we're going to do that in Sussex County. But Sussex County doesn't have a large population of minorities. But
Joe, you know what this number is like? I mean, dare I say it? This is like Jim Crow South under the Democrat control in the southern. I mean, that's exactly what you would expect to see in a Jim Crow southern state.
White suburban women are the largest Democrat voting demographic out there. White suburban women. No, actually, Black women are. White suburban women are pretty close, not far behind. White suburban women do not live next to African Americans. They're the first ones to say that they're for George Floyd and that everything's a racist society, but you won't catch them living next to an African American community. You won't.
No.
Yeah. That's why the hypocrisy is just unbelievable.
So I don't know how much we didn't talk about a time frame, but I do want to make sure we get to chapter 4, which is your largest chapter,
Mhm.
and that chapter talks about, in essence, what kind of candidate we're going to have. How do we win? I think that's the best way to sum it up. How do we win as Republicans in the state of New Jersey? You basically made the case between 1, 2, and 3, but the first quote that I have here is this one about. Let me pull it up here for you. How the Republican Party should raise levies of candidates can be summarized as the way a sports team or a military unit aligns personnel, calling it the bench.
Yeah.
So can you?
Yeah.
I mean, you have other ones here
We
too.
gotta break with this Byzantine or late Roman Empire style power paranoia. Whereas as we run our parties, as we run our elections, we refuse to empower those who we find threatening. And we instead empower the buffoons. And look how Hayden got where he got. Look at some of the other people. I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to embarrass them. People who just got really beat in some elections, right? Mm-hmm. These are people who leaders in the party breathe oxygen into because they feel like they're easy to control. So they become the bench. And when they're on the bench, they become the problem because then their lacking of maturity and understanding makes them feel like they can take on the world. And then they turn on their own masters, so to speak. You need a bench of qualified people ready to step up and take each position. And they need to be able to sit back and say, okay, I may never step up to that position, but I'm happy to do it when I'm called upon. The Dems have that bench. The Dems have that bench. When you saw Gottheimer go against Sherrill, you didn't see any viciousness. Same with Speiler. Same with my good buddy Barack in Newark. I call my good buddy being sarcastic. The only guy who got fresh was Fulop. And look how the Dems are turning on him now. But yet we in the Republican Party, we cut our throats. We cut our throats. I mean, the way the Spadia campaign went after Chitterelli was just so over the top. It was almost like they'd rather see a Democrat in charge. That was more than just a honest criticism or more than just a determined effort to win a primary. This was almost like a hit job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you overcome?
I kept on trying to say, who are you going to want? Whichever candidate you want, you're not helping the case. You're making the case for the Democrats by these attacks. It comes down to what's better. Is it a Republican that you agree with 80% of the time, or is it a Democrat that you're never going to agree with? You're going to disagree with 80% of the time, because when you're attacking the other candidates so viciously, you're really guaranteeing that 80% that's not going to agree with you. It's the same case with Trump, though, because there's so many people who attack Trump and they go after him. But listen, 80% of what he stands for, you agree with. But Kamala, there's nothing that you agree with. She's nothing but smoke and mirrors. And she's going to turn on any idea that sounds favorable to you. She's going to turn around on you. So
it's a flaw within our community. It's a serious character flaw within our community. It's the flaw is basically number one, we worship the hero figure. The Democrats don't. The Democrats they're the anti-heroes. They don't want a heroic figure. They want a soft, pliable, emotional therapist. That's why when you see Cheryl talk on her things, she talks like she's this benign school marm who's just facilitating. She's facilitating this comfortable chat. That's how she portrays herself. We Republicans, we want to see the decisive leadership. We want to see strength. We want to see all that. But at the same time, that lends us to this concept of the hero figure. We're looking for the King Arthur. We're looking for the George Washington. We're looking for the Abraham Lincoln figure because that's what we believe. We believe in the great leader of history theory. The Dems don't. The Democrats follow the the theory of history where we're all just one big community doing a kumbaya. That's why in the Republican community, I attribute a lot of that to my landslide victory as a chairman. Because the people I was that were against me, well, there was a lot of problems with them. But one of the things that they were selling the committee is this kumbaya hunky-dory. We're all going to get along. We're not going to say anything negative. We're all just going to be this kumbaya. That's not what Republicans want. Republicans want decisiveness, strength. They want vision, and they want energy, and they want tenacity. Republicans are warriors. And if you got to be that way as a Republican, but at the same time, we can't turn on each other. So when you have a beta male or a beta warrior in the Republican Party, they turn on other Republicans because that's the low-hanging fruit. Going against the Democrats is hard. When you go against Democrats, they bring a lot of pain on you, and they bring a lot of problems on you. But hey, I can go against Republicans all day from my social media. I can knock in and humiliate other Republicans all day. You can even primary Republicans and have a good time at it, and there's no consequence. Go into a Democrat area, be a Democrat and primary another Democrat. Look what happens to your way of life. They come down on you. So our own best virtue becomes our vice.
Yeah, I think part of that is you did mention like there needs to be a pipeline of candidates.
Yeah,
that needs to be built.
I'm doing that currently in my team as chair. Look who we got as our treasurer. Look who we got as our secretary. Right. Our vice chair is very young, but he's got a lot of potential. Look who I got as volunteers. I'm not bringing in little stooges who just do what Joe tells them. I'm bringing in people where they got to be mature, they got to be professionally and personally successful, and they got to have a future. And if we start building that, we will build a great future pipeline. They just need to be managed correctly. And then the mentality of, oh, I don't like that person because that person did this, this, and this, and I'm going to figure out a way to undermine that person because I see them as a challenge. That shows how weak we are. If we stop doing this, we will build a candidate stable that's impregnable. And then when our candidates win, we will have a good stable to do appointments with of people who are capable and successful. What's got to go is crony appointments. Boards of trustees are the worst. We cannot keep appointing people who are complete salamis just because we want to get them out of the way or we want to reward them for something they did. We got to break away from that. And then in the next 2 years as chair, I'm going to throw fits if anybody gets appointed who's a clown.
One of the things that you did, I think I picked this up, but I didn't highlight it. I think it was just one of the things that I caught in my reading was that this idea of focusing on just the candidate as opposed to our message.
Yeah.
Like we get like a Christie and everyone's, oh, we're all for Christie. Christie's this, Christie's that. And by consequence of focusing on Christie, we missed all these things that we are Republicans that we want to see. So we just, like you mentioned before, we just let Christie go in there, and that's. I mean, I'm not a big Christie fan. Period,
but no, I know what you mean. And then when that candidate leaves, we all fall apart.
Exactly.
So if the Republican Party is going to be this sycophantic hero worshiper of a candidate, then when that candidate falls, there's nothing left. And then it's a disservice to that candidate. Because, I mean, a really good candidate like Jack Ciattarelli, he's a phenomenal candidate for governor. Mm-hmm. He deserves a strong party behind him. He doesn't deserve infighting. He doesn't deserve the gossip columnists that undermine each other. He doesn't deserve donors being afraid to donate. He deserves a strong party behind him. And if we don't build a strong party, even if we have King Arthur, we're not going to have the freaking or George Washington. George Washington, I know he said I don't like parties. George Washington had the Continental Army, and he had Benjamin Franklin backing him, and he had John Adams backing him.
Yeah, who else? He had
people backing him.
He had the stable of the American greats. I mean,
that's a great way to put it. I mean, if you look around and you look at, if we had a state, we actually have very strong party chairs. But if we had a state of weak party chairs, how are we going to get support behind our guy? How? I mean, Spadia's campaign strategy, when they realized that his years of beating up on party chairs meant the party chairs wouldn't support him, he basically washed his hands of the party chairs and says, I'm not dealing with him. That didn't work out well for him. But I mean, he kind of made that bet himself with his years and years of getting on the radio and slamming party chairs. These guys, that didn't work. That didn't help him. You know, when your score card is overwhelmingly attacking Republicans and only attacking Democrats part of the time, that's not a reformist. That's an insurgent. That's not a reformist. A reformist leads his party to better results. That's a reformist. You give a critique, but the critique doesn't hurt people. Nothing I'm saying here is targeted to hurt anybody. And no one who doesn't even know anything can even know what I'm talking about. All they'll know is they'll say, we got to build a bigger stable. We got to support our candidates that are incumbents if they stick by the Republican platform. I don't have to like a person in office, but if they vote strongly for the Republican Party platform, they have my sword in their defense. If they vote stupidly against the Republican Party platform, I have and I will call them out, but I'll do it respectfully, and it'll be about the issues. It won't be these disgusting personal attacks that scare away other people from politics.
So, Joe, I do want to two more things before we end the video, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One is you have this list of 20 topics, or 20 things.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
20. Here, let me pull it up. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
There's 20 things. I'm not going to read them all, but I just want to highlight a couple of them. No taxation over 4% of income or property value. Americans deserve to have their hard work rewarded. You have government owes us an economy where we can all prosper. You have our faith, our families, our nation, our state. New Jersey Republicans will lead us to prosperity. Bring farms and businesses back to New Jersey. And American pride, vote Republican. Hispanic pride equals Republican pride. And prosperity, opportunity, freedom, happiness equals the Republican Party. Is there anything, or one faith? Wait, I mentioned that one. Anything there you want to add?
No, those are the elements of what I believe should be harmonized into our messaging.
Yes. We want God.
Yes, remember Lech Walesa in the polls. After
yes,
the Soviet
yes.
Union, we want God. We want God. As the Democrats become, as they take secularism and make this a punitive force against religion, you're already seeing it. The Catholic Church is expanding membership. Kids are becoming more religious. You're going to see this because society cannot exist. Society is not sustainable without religious faith. It isn't. Society isn't sustainable based on secular institutions. The Enlightenment has largely failed. The Enlightenment was good for a lot of reasons. It was a reform, and I wrote about the Enlightenment in the book. It was a reform in a lot of ways, but its complete divorce from religion has turned society into cultural chaos.
Mm-hmm. And so the last thing I guess I want to talk to you, because we're coming up on the hour mark, is, and this is for everyone out there, this is a complete, Joe has no idea I'm going to spring this on him. So a little shocker. I wanted to talk about the results from the primary, focusing on the Democrat results, because you and I kind of sometimes, this is kind of like our bread and butter here. Mm-hmm. We handicap things based off of
I
what
love doing
we
this.
see.
I love doing this. We should be consultants, you and I.
We should be, because as you look at the map of New Jersey, the counties that Cheryl didn't win are kind of big deals in the map. They're like three major counties are big deals. And that would be, to me, that's Bergen County. That would be Essex County, because of Newark. And then, well, I guess she did win Camden. But Camden was my third. But 2 out of the 3 big ones. 2 out of the 4 big ones, I would say, because Passaic with Patterson would be a big one too. She won that one, and she won Camden. But she lost Essex and Bergen. And you and I both know Bergen is the largest population in the state at 1 million people in the population in Bergen County. And it's also this, Joe. It's also this. All the money. And of course, Gottheimer won that because Gottheimer, we know, has the roots. He's got his his grip on that county. So if Gottheimer decides to say, I don't want her to win because in 4 years I can run again because he has the money, we could see him sabotaging Cheryl, as I think he's already tried to, to get her to lose the governor's race. Because you may remember, I know you do, the election in 2021 was razor thin, and it hung in Bergen County. I know a lot of our Republican friends want to say that there was fraud there. And listen, we're not gonna get into that debate, but we do is razor thin in 2021. This time is not going to be razor thin. I have a feeling Jack's going to really get that county, because my gut says Josh doesn't like the competition. And so he's going to, as us Italians might say, send the fishes where they belong.
No, he is. Gottheimer's ambitious for a higher level. Cheryl's
Yes.
a competitor for that.
Yes.
Newark, Essex County was all about Barack because he's black, and the white liberal woman didn't want a black guy, so they voted for Cheryl. Cheryl is a product of the wealthy elites. Her whole life has been a product of wealthy elites. She's even in her military background, she was always a sycophant to the power base. She's a person who achieves status in the future based on her ability to court the favor of her superiors. She's a patronage. She's a product of patronage. Gottheimer, I may not like him, his ideals, and I may be against him politically, but I give Gottheimer a lot of credit, man. He's largely a self-made guy. He's a very canny political operator. I wish Gottheimer was a Republican, dude. He'd be a great operator. I mean, Gottheimer, you gotta say, knows what he's doing. Cheryl isn't. She is a product of elite patrons. And I don't believe that's going to get her over the edge. I don't.
You know how I feel about Josh. Josh also has his roots too from the Clintons. He was Bill Clinton's speechwriter, and they really gave him his lift up.
But look what he's done since then. Look what he's done.
Oh yeah, no, he's made a lot. I mean, he also has a lot of financial connections through his wife, through Wall Street. He's very well connected. He's the kind of politician.
He does.
Yeah, he's a commensurate politician. He does reach out and network and gets the people that he knows he needs in order to get what he wants. And you said it the best when you said he's ambitious. And
very ambitious.
The governor, he's young enough to know that the governor's race is not over for him. It's just on pause.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want to wait 8 years, Joe.
He wants to be a president. He wants to be a vice president.
Yes.
To be a secretary of state. He wants those big. He wants to run the country. So to run the country, he can't have Cheryl as a competitor.
And he can't. He's got to be governor. He can't do it as former congressman.
I believe that Cheryl believes any of her ideology. I don't. I think Cheryl is an old school American, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Actually, she is a Catholic, but I mean, I know her ultimate background. They were descended from the English Cavaliers. She is an aristocrat. She's an American aristocrat. She is not someone who her inner circle or her inner trusted sphere of influence is going to be anybody else but American aristocrats. That's it. And Gottheimer is not that. Gottheimer is not that. Gottheimer is a Jewish American boy from New Jersey with a upper middle class background. He is not Cheryl or her family or her background at all. So I don't think you're ever going to see Cheryl embracing Gottheimer as a trusted confidant.
Yeah, I think also a telling mark on this is Essex County has part of her district.
Montclair was flat out. They were just black men won't vote for a rich white woman.
Yeah, she is. This is a very bad. I mean, we haven't dived into the numbers, and at some point in the future, you and I will dive into the numbers. But just taking at it as just a page look here, this is a very bad map for her. And when she looked at that, she had to be thinking, "I lost part of my own district." Yeah,
well, I don't think she's thinking that. I think her people are thinking that. I don't believe Cheryl has political acumen.
Yeah,
I believe she comes up to political, powerful people. Democrats, everything I'm saying is relating to race. Democrats vote and think based on race. Republicans don't. They do.
Right.
They do. And if you look at that voting map for Cheryl, that is a racial map. That is entirely a racial map.
And she's not very exciting either. There's not really that much. I don't see a lot of excitement for her. She's, like you said, she's very plain.
She's not inspired by passion and conquest. She's not. She's another Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and that's we know that's a losing equation.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, she ran against Frelinghuysen, who was a very left-wing Republican. Couldn't get the conservative vote out. She benefited from redistricting, and she benefited by the right time and place. She was at the right time, the right place. Had a very bad Republican candidate, a very weak Republican candidate, and she was able to attack him and attack him and attack him. And it was right when it was the Me Too, and it was right a little before Me Too, but it was right with this big post-Obama insurgency against Republicans. And then you have a Republican who couldn't get the Republicans out to vote, which was Frelinghuysen. That's how she won. So I think she's on borrowed time.
Let's hope so. I mean, if she loses this, then she's very vulnerable in the next congressional election in the midterms.
Oh, yeah. So and, I got my eyes on some people.
Yes, me too. I know. We both do. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Joe, that is we did an hour. I don't know. Is there any final thoughts that you want to have on your book? Like,
no, I'd like some people to read it. It's cheap. It's $10. I'd like some people to read it. I'd like more Republicans to read it. I would like it to be internalized. I know everybody's busy and everybody's doing that. I really think that even if you don't agree with everything I'm saying, I think it'll make some points that will be a value added to the Republican cause. Hey, what other party chairman writes a book?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Where is our strategy saying this is how we take the state? Where is it? This is it. This is the strategy of how to take back the state of New Jersey.
I think you should
agree with it, but it's here.
I think you should get it printed up, and I think you should bring it down to the next chairman's meeting.
It's a few grand to print it up, and I'm kind of cheap, but maybe I'll do it. By the end of the year, I'll get it printed up. By the end of the year.
I got a guy.
You got a guy?
Right.
You do it for
I got a guy.
Let's do it.
I got a guy who will make him super cheap for you.
All right, then what I'll do is I'll just give him out at the next committee meeting. I'll just give him out.
We'll talk after the show, Joe.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check back. We're going to be doing more of these videos.
Thanks,
Talk to you soon, Joe. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.